Hi, I'm Courtney Bailey, Chief Development Officer for MPTF. What you're about to hear is one of the panels that took place during our recent women's conference, Deal With It, on July 28, 2019. Madeline Hammond, who produces the conference, took great care to make sure we found the best speakers to cover the most relevant topics of today. This event is for the betterment of women in the entertainment industry, but there is such great information here that can really help everybody. So listen, enjoy, and most importantly, feel free to pass it along to someone who may benefit from this information as well. Today's podcast is Reinvent Yourself. Today you'll be listening to a discussion that was recorded live, so be kind. There may be areas where the audio drops out a bit or an audience member's question is hard to hear, but don't worry, you'll definitely get the context of what the panel is about. MPTF is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of MPTF policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by MPTF. The views expressed by our guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by MPTF employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of MPTF or any of its officials. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Dea Lawrence, and this afternoon we are going to be talking about the career transition journey, reinventing yourself in your career. And I don't know, did anybody see the Bob Dylan documentary, Rolling Thunder? Has anybody seen that? In that, he said something really, I thought, very interesting. He said, life is not about finding yourself. It's actually about creating yourself. And if we take his words a step further, it's about recreating ourselves. So sometimes we come to the point in our careers where our first career is no longer giving us the joy it gave us, or it never gave us any joy, or the rug has been pulled out from under us and we have no choice but to reinvent ourselves. So given the topic of the conversation, I'm going to let our fabulous panel introduce themselves to you with the topic of, I used to be this and now I'm that. So I'll go. I'm Dea Lawrence, and I used to be the star of Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, but now I'm the CMO of Variety.
How do you follow that? I'm Tal Rabinowitz. I used to work in entertainment, and now I'm the founder and CEO of Den Meditation.
I'm Bob Oswax. I used to be in entertainment. I was head of marketing for Sony Pictures Television, working with Tal. I'll use this. I used to be head of marketing at Sony Pictures Television, and now I have my own artisan bakery and cafe up in the San Ynez Valley.
That's great. I am Lisa Olin, and I used to be a film and television producer, and now I own Cake Monkey Bakery.
What was the last part?
Cake Monkey Bakery. You're welcome.
Hello, I used to be Charlotte Hambrick, Senior Producer, Entertainment Tonight, and that was like my identity. Charlotte Hambrick, Entertainment Tonight. Now I'm Charlotte, and I'm a financial planner.
So Tal, let's start with you. What was the pivotal point in your life when you realized I can no longer work in the entertainment industry and I'm going to change my career?
Okay, well, for me, I think it was slightly different. Can people hear? Because I can't tell what okay. It was never it was never like, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to. It was more a little bit to what you were talking about, Bob Dylan. It was more like, I just wasn't feeling it as much, and I started noticing I was paying attention to other things more, or I started getting more excited about other things, and so I just really paid attention to that, and I would follow that. So I never felt like, I have to close this door, I can never go back, which I think is helpful in some ways. It was more like, right now, I can feel it in my bones, I have to try this.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, I'd say the last year I was running comedy at NBC. I just wasn't in it as much. Like, it wasn't as exciting, it wasn't as fun. I mean, I still loved it, but I could feel the struggle. You guys know, when you're not in something, you just feel that you're forcing yourself to put one foot in front of the other. And I knew, and all that kept going through my head was, what I would do for a break. Oh my God, what I would do for 3 months off. What I would do for 3 months off. And then when my contract ended, I stopped and I said, wait a second, you've been saying for about a year now to anyone who would listen what you would do for 3 months off. So stop and take 3 months off.
Yeah.
And I did. And then 3 months, we were joking about this earlier, became, when more jobs would come in, I'd be like, no, I'm gonna make it 6 months. Like once I was in it and gave myself the space, I realized I needed more space. And then when I finally had enough distance and space, that voice was loud enough that I said, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, that's great. And so the first step you took was to assess during that 6-month period, what am I gonna do next?
No, it was never, I never even sat there being like, what am I gonna do? It was more like, the one thing I know that's fact is I need a break.
You need a break. So you
And so
took a
I
break.
went by the one thing that was fact, and I knew that if I could actually honor that, I always feel like if you honor your voice or what it is you need, the other truths come out.
Right.
But when you're not actually honoring the truth, the other truths will never come out. Then it's just a lot of noise.
Right, so you took a break. And Bob, how did you go from Sony Pictures to being a baker?
Let me first. Let me just say I understand that this is a woman's conference.
Yes.
We love you, Bob.
I get the irony of my being here, but I think that Madeline and Dea felt I had an interesting story to tell, so I appreciate your allowing me to be here. My journey was I had this 30-year career as a television executive. And after 30 years of never being out of work, I found myself let go from a very big job at Sony. And so I was home and I was trying to keep my mind and my hands busy while I was waiting for headhunters to call back. And I started making bread. We had a wood-fired oven in our backyard, and I was experimenting and reading books and trying to figure out what that secret sauce was. And then the headhunters started calling back and they'd say, wow, you've had this amazing career. And you've done this and you've done that. And you've been this, all these things. But they said, but you know what? You're 50 and that job's not coming your way again. And I was like, really? And that happened more than once. And so I just kept making bread because I became obsessed and passionate about it because it was such a unique experience. And every day, every loaf is an opportunity to make it better, make it different. I began making it every day, so if it was early or late or humid or dry or hot or cold, whatever the conditions, how do you control it so that it's consistent? And then I really just became very passionate about it, and I had a conversation with Nancy Silverton about it, and she said, I never set out to make the $1 million baguette. I wanted to make a loaf of bread that I loved. So if you're obsessed and you're passionate, follow your passion, and hopefully you'll find the success. So I went to San Francisco over the course of 2 years, and San Francisco Baking Institute, and took all their classes and studied bread. And during this time, I started working on a business plan and had to convince my wife that this was a good leap of faith. And it has been. We moved up to San Ynez 7 years ago. We opened the bakery. It'll be 5 years on Thursday, August 1st. So it's businesses like that, as you know, don't always make it, and we did, and we made it pretty well.
That's
Is
fantastic.
Bakery in Los Alamos?
Yeah, that's me.
I've been there. It is great.
And I do have samples. If any, our volunteers will pass them out.
Okay, so your first step was you wrote a business plan.
I wrote a business plan. It took me 2 years. I actually hired a guy to help me write a business plan who teaches about entrepreneurship at UCLA. And we met every week for 3 hours for 2 years. And every week he gave me homework assignments.
He was like your coach.
He was my coach. And he gave me homework assignments of, where do people buy bread, and how much do they spend on bread, how much they spend on food out of the home, and what's the medium income in the San Ynez Valley and the surrounding areas, and who your customers are going to be, and what are their socioeconomic desires, and all. And after 2 years, I'm like, where's the plan, though? We've been working on this, and every week I had to do these homework assignments. And really what happened was these, 104 different assignments became a narrative that we put together and told a story.
Right.
And we took that story to Montecito Bank and Trust, who believed in me. And they're, you know, you go to a local bank, they want to help build local businesses. And
Good.
yeah.
Okay, and Lisa, how about
Yes.
you? What happened that you suddenly decided I am not going to produce anymore?
For me, it was that things had changed. I had had an overall deal at a studio and had a partner, and he did a movie in London and decided to live there and not come back. And so now I'm working out of my house. I got a new partner, and we're trying to sell projects, and just getting harder and harder. And like I had a moment of a last straw moment, which was I set up a project at a network, we made the deal, and then they just said, yeah, you know what, yeah, we changed our mind. And I went, okay, I think I want to just say, you know what, I had a really good run. I set out, I did what I set out to do. I became a producer, and I need to do something else. And it wasn't like, I wasn't so ecstatic about it. I felt a little forced into it, but I also felt that I didn't want to just keep like being a peddler. Hi, what about this? What about this? I just wanted to feel good about what I accomplished. So I love baked goods. I love treats. And I was thinking about opening some kind of a business, and I decided to create the bakery that I wanted to go to. So kind of like what Nancy was saying of she wanted to create a baguette that she loved, I wanted to create a bakery that I loved that would have the things that I was looking for, because I would drive anywhere for a treat. I'm not even a baker, okay? So what I did was I took my skills that I had. I'm a producer, so I produced a bakery. I came up with the concept. I worked on a business plan with the help of my husband, because I didn't know how to do that. And I came up with the name. I knew the products. I had a logo made. Like, I did all the things that I could do. And then I put an ad on Craigslist for a pastry chef. I said, must love cake, because I wanted somebody who really was passionate about it. And that's how it came about.
And so
that was 12 years ago.
When you said that, and you'd been a producer for a number of years.
Yeah, over.
So this was
I moved out here from New York, started out as an assistant and worked my way up, and
Now, when you said that you didn't know how to write a business plan, so Bob hired a consultant.
Right.
But did you go to Google? That's my consultant, always.
Yeah, yes, we definitely looked at some sample business plans. And my husband's a great writer, and he's a financial planner as well. And he's just like good at this stuff, so he really helped me. So he put a rough draft together, and then it was easy for me to come in and put my mark on it. And another thing that helped with the business plan, which is kind of similar to like your homework assignments, was when I was having the logo created, the designer gave me this questionnaire and asked me all these kinds of questions. It was almost like a therapy session, and really made me think about aspects of the business, and that really helped inform the business plan as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Charlotte, you had a similar story in that you were also working in the entertainment industry as a producer, and then what happened?
Well, I'm going to be 100% real. My contract ended a year early, unexpectedly, and so I wasn't prepared. And when that happened, I didn't understand my finances. I was making an amazing salary, had a $1.XX million house, and it was all gone. There was no income whatsoever. And I trusted all these men, no offense, to run my finances. And I hadn't heard from these guys. I would hear from my accountant, my tax person. I hadn't heard from these guys for years. I didn't even know what I was invested in. I didn't know anything. So I did the most ridiculous thing you could ever do is cash in one of my 401ks. Got hit with a 50% tax bill, and one thing led to the next, and I was just like, how could, I be so quote unquote successful? How can I produce other people's lives? 100 employees, and now I'm at a loss myself. And one of the things that saved me during that period was an insurance policy that I had gotten when I had my daughter. And it had cash value in it, which I didn't even know cash value even accumulated in an insurance policy. And so I wanted to give back. I've always said I wanted a job in which I'm giving back. I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? I mean, it's like I've spent 25 years, half my life, protecting other people's secrets. You know, heads of studios, movie stars, rock stars. My whole life is protecting their secrets, either making a career, building a career, working with publicists, working with marketing people. And I was like, you know, what can I do with that? How am I going to transfer that? So I met a woman by the name of Therese, and also I have to say Malin Hammond was there for me, saying, you know what? You don't have to be that anymore. You can be whatever, you can do whatever you want. And I realized at that point that it wasn't so much of the knowledge, because I kept reading books and I was just gonna reteach myself something. And it wasn't the knowledge of you know, learning so much to make the transition, it was just doing. It was just doing, learning as I go. And I got my insurance license, and with the support of New York Life, who encouraged me to keep going. And then I'm getting my Series 6 and 63 in a matter of weeks. And I just wanted to give back, and I wanted to help women and families in similar situations and not feel comfortable talking to their brokers. And sometimes they could be really condescending, and you know, and I wanted to listen. And I just wanted to be there and just listen and help them develop plans for their future, their children's future, long-term care, which is so important. So that's basically how I made the transition.
So, and what you did during that transition period is you took classes. So that's something you did them on the weekends, you did them in the evening.
Online.
You took classes online?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so you educated yourself.
Yeah.
And so now, Tal, during this time where you were taking your 3-month break, went into a 6-month break, what happened that led you to start Denver?
Right, I was doing stuff. Now I get what you were specifically asking.
I know you weren't just lying around the house.
No, I wasn't. I knew, because my personality, once I put my mind to something, it happens very fast, which is why I was a little reticent to jump full force. But I was, my first thing was saying, same thing, I produce. Like, that's what I did. I was at the network, I was at a studio, I was a producer. So I was same thing, I'm like, I'm gonna produce this idea. And so for me, before I did the business plan, I sat down, like in front of the TV, and I was just like, okay, I have this idea. I've had it for a while. I had the idea of this like meditation studio you could go to that was easy, drop in. It didn't exist anywhere, which I liked, that there was no model to follow. But on the same regard, I was like, okay, I gotta figure it out. How do I do this? So I just sat down and I made a list of like every question. I just kept thinking about, how can this look? Now let me get at it at every angle and write down every possible thing I think I need. So whether it be from a logo, whether it be from a rental space, whether it be from a business account, whether it be from a tax ID. And I just started asking every question under every umbrella, and that would lead to more. And I started categorizing it in, these are things I know I will need to do. These are things I have no clue how to even begin or start. It's just not even my realm, but I'm sure there's something in this area. And I just started tackling it. So if it was the no clue area, I'd be like, okay, how do I find out? So whether it be Google, which is an amazing resource, whether it be sitting down with people and asking them, and I just started kind of making a resource list of how to inform. You just have to be informed. So how can you inform yourself? And that's like kind of the first thing I started doing. While also, I had a trademark attorney. I got my name. I started working kind of on a logo. And like I said, I just started really producing it until I was like, okay, I'm full force ahead. I'm going to execute.
And when you started doing this, did you think to yourself, I'm leaving one job and I'm going to open this business and this is going to be my new career? Or did you think this is going to be a temporary thing? I'm going to try this out.
I didn't think either. I was just like, this is what I'm doing. And but I've always been this way. I mean, Bob and I worked together at Sony, and like the presidents there used to just baffle them because they would always be like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Right. I'm like, I just don't operate that way. I'm learning so much here. I love it. I'm invigorated. I'm going to go. And I feel like I've always been someone that I felt like if I limit myself with having to decide what I'm going to do with my life, I'm going to miss out on a lot of stuff that probably doesn't even exist. I mean, you guys see how life is changing every day. There's jobs and industries that didn't exist 2 years ago. So I feel like if you get too in this box, you limit yourself. And so even with this, I was invigorated. I was excited by the possibility. I had no clue where it would go. If I thought about it too much, I probably wouldn't have done it because, again, it didn't exist. People thought I was crazy at that point. They're like, who's going to pay to go meditate? And what is meditation? That makes no sense. So and part of it, too, like what you were saying, it was giving back. This was a huge part of who I was, this kind of spiritual side. And, like, I used to take my vacations to go to, like, random places to do community service. So it was like, it was just fulfilling a different side of me, too.
And sometimes, for myself, when I was an actor, and I was an actor for a good deal of time, people saw me that way, right? So my identity was being an actor. And to change my identity for me, I think it was more difficult for the people around me. They're like, you're selling technology? Like what? So when you, Bob, told your family and friends, I am going to open a bakery, did everyone go, are you out of your mind?
Yeah, my wife was like, what the do you know about owning? What do you know about, owning a bakery? And I said to her, well, it's not just going to be a bakery, it's got to be a cafe too, because because you have to up the guest check average by someone comes in to buy a loaf of bread and they say, oh, you've got sandwiches too, or I'm going to get a croissant, or so and she was like, she just didn't get it. But then the more when we would have gone like to industry events and a producer would come up to me, and if I was with my wife at the Emmys or something like that, and they'd say, oh, you know what, nice to meet you, Jane. We like Bob because he does this for us or something. But then she started hearing people, so she knew what I did when I did it, but she didn't get me as this kind of an entrepreneur. But then she started hearing people when they were just talking about the bread. And they were like, this is the best bread I've ever had, and whatever. And she started to say, okay, we'll do it, but I get to choose the house, kind of. So it was a big leap of faith for her. And for the first several years of the business, it's a small business and it's a family-run business. My wife spent her life raising our family and didn't have a job out of the home. So now she had to all of a sudden show up every day and work with me, which was really hard for both of us. But the fact is, it's called Bob's Well Bread. And obviously, because it was my idea and it was my passion to follow, but her imprint is on every inch of the space because she designed the look of the space, and she hand makes all of our jams and all of the marshmallows that go in hot chocolates or things like that. So it's definitely a partnership, but she likes not being there quite as much.
Good. Lisa, what about you? Did you get support from family and friends, or
I did, but my husband was very supportive. He has a good entrepreneurial spirit, so he believed in it. I think my family thought I was a little crazy, especially since I didn't bake. But they went along. Nobody discouraged me from doing it, so I was very fortunate. But you could hear it in their tone a little bit, like, oh. And then my friends would be like, okay, But people were supportive, and when we first started, and they were coming in and helping us wrap our cookies and helping me deliver things, and I recruited everybody, and they all came and showed up to do it. So I think that they were maybe a little skeptical at first, but when they saw that it got off the ground, they were all hands on deck. So we have a location on Beverly Boulevard near Fairfax. We have a location in Westlake Village, And we have a wholesale business as well. So we sell our pastries to, I don't know, almost like 100 different coffee shops and things around LA, Orange County, San Diego.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we ship.
No,
Cake Monkey.
Cake Monkey. Everyone's bios too is in the booklets too, if you want to refer to them, so you can learn more about them.
Yeah.
Charlotte, now, did your family say finance? That's a great profession. Go into that. Or how did they respond? They didn't. Oh, okay.
Friends. Wine helped. I have to say. I want to come over and let's just have a bottle of wine. And by the way, this is what I'm doing now. And my friends were supportive, and the ones who were not, I had to put on ice. And sometimes when you are making a transition like this, you do have to put your friends on ice. It's not that you're breaking up or anything. And I had to do that with some friends because my DM where I work now brought up your temperature. And we always want to go back to our comfort zone. And your comfort zone being 70 degrees. Well, in order to make change, you have to maybe be at 100 degrees. And sometimes friends will always bring you back to that 70 degrees. And so with regards to that, some were supportive and some weren't. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, when you don't have that support system around you and you hear negative voices, it's another hurdle that you have to overcome. So you got to just push those people aside. Tal, did you find that to be, or were your...
I didn't tell anyone until I had the space. No, honestly, for that reason,
Okay.
I didn't tell anyone until I knew we had the space and there was no way we weren't opening. So
Yeah.
only when I knew, oh God, I got the space, so in X amount of months we're opening, did I start telling people. And then, yeah, so then you're kind of tempering the reaction because they have to be supportive because it's already happening. But you could tell, I mean, I would literally get looks of, what is she thinking? Oh my God. But I purposely knew that I was like, I gotta just trust myself on this. I can't hear the noise. And so I didn't tell anyone until it was too late.
So, and what were some, Bob, let's start with you with the challenges. Like, what were some initial challenges that you had, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, I guess, one challenge was that I had to learn really how to bake. I was creating my own bakery and I wasn't turning that over. But it all sort of happened concurrently because I was taking classes and I was baking every day and I was working on my business plan. So I didn't have, and I didn't look at this as, I looked at it as failure is not an option. I have to figure out how to create this and how to make it work and, support my family. So I really just looked at everything I had to do. And like Tal said, I had lists and, I hired my old creative director at Sony and he created my logo and we worked together on that. And I was working on the business plan and I was figuring out, hiring staffing and designing the space. And I just looked at it as not that there were challenges, but just these are the things that I need to do to make my success happen.
Yeah, great. That's great. I love that. Lisa, what was one of your top challenges and how did you overcome it?
I would say that it would be that it didn't start taking the direction that I was planning it to take. So I had the business plan, and that was to open a store. And I needed to go out and raise money, and I held a little investor event. And at first, you invite your friends, family, former colleagues, and people were supportive, and we got money. And but then in looking for a storefront, like I couldn't find the right space, or it was too expensive, and instead, so I just had to veer off the path a little bit, and that's okay. So sometimes your business plan might not be what you end up following to the T. So we got a kitchen space instead because I had been doing everything out of my kitchen, and we started getting wholesale requests like, oh, we had some of these, can we sell them at your store or whatever? And so I was like, okay, I didn't really set out to do that. So like I was a little fighting it at first because I wanted the store, that's what I wanted. But I went in I just followed where it was going naturally, and that it ended up working. But I would say like that was a challenge, that it just wasn't going according to plan at first.
Going according to plan. So you
yeah.
have to be flexible.
You
with your
have to
plan.
be flexible, and sometimes that's a good thing that it doesn't go according to
Yeah.
plan. Like, I do believe like things are meant to be or happen for a reason, and the wholesale part of my business is the bigger part of my business than retail now. So that
That's
ended up
interesting.
being, I guess, the right way.
Right,
you
how
know?
it evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes even though you plan everything out and you write everything down, you can't just go by that way.
Right,
You've gotta
don't
go
feel
with
so
the way-
stuck in
Yeah.
a mold, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
Right. And Charlotte, what was your big challenge?
My challenge was being taken serious.
Being taken seriously.
I was always chasing results because my previous life was about, ratings and the box office and, is this person, legitimate or not? So I was always chasing the result. And finally, I started looking at the improvement as opposed to the results, and that helped a lot. And also, I was thinking that it had to be one or the other. And what if this unicorn project comes along and you just can't say no? Well, unicorn project did come along, and I'm doing it, and that producer director who's here right now, Devin, it was one of my first clients. So you don't have to, as you were saying, put yourself in a box. You can still, embrace the 25, 30 years of experience you have in another area, and you may be able to intertwine them, You will probably be bringing your treats to a movie set.
Yep.
You will be bringing your bread to a marketing meeting. So just take the skills that you have and be able to transfer them in and still make everything, work. Don't feel like you have to slam a door just because you're making a transition or you're reinventing yourself.
So you had your transferable skills. Bob, did you want to add to that?
I wanted to add to when we were talking about the challenges, and I think we can all agree to this because we all had these levels of jobs where the teams of people that we all managed were highly skilled, highly functional, highly compensated people. And, management things we learned when they'd send us these seminars at Sony is, management isn't a one-size-fits-all suit. You've got to manage the different people on your teams based on their level of skill and what level of skill you need them to have to do the job that you want them to do. But that's really different when you've got 20-something people that work for you that most of them make minimum wage.
Yeah.
$11 an hour. And getting people to follow you and allow you to lead them is really different when you're trying to manage people like that, to get them to feel like they've got skin in the game, have the pride in their work, show up, So that is an ongoing daily challenge.
Whole different process, hiring and managing
it absolutely
people
is.
Totally
in
is.
the bakery than at Sony. And Tal, what were some of your challenges? Did you have challenges that occurred more before the Den meditation opened or afterwards? What was your?
I think a lot of kind of what Bob is saying, it is a whole different beast. And, we're a customer service business most often. And, and I'd say that is the toughest part, is really dealing with that again. And the people who are on the front of the business a lot of times, like you said, are being paid minimum wage and are, can be frustrated. And look, I actually feel very lucky from the management positions I came from, because I actually feel like it gave me a great skill set.
Yeah.
But I did have to shift gears on remembering that the the prototype, the person I'm dealing with is a very different type of person.
Yeah.
And so I used to be and I still am a very macro person where it's like, I trust you, I don't care how you get to Z, just get to Z. If you have questions, I'm happy to walk you through how I would get to Z. And I learned really quickly that it was just a different ball game, that by doing that, it actually freaked people out.
Yeah.
Versus, no, it's true. That was actually, I got the negative response. They were like, ah, versus kind of getting in there being like, okay, let me really, get in there with you and walk you from A to Z.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that is definitely.
But I feel like we've all kind of hinted at it, especially on these entrepreneurial positions,
Yeah.
You can't have a challenge. Challenge doesn't exist. It's having the mindset of, okay, that's not what I expected. That's not working. Now where do I go?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's why all of us are kind of like, I don't know what the big challenge is, because you just have the mindset of just keep going. So I'm going to shift left. I'm going to shift right. Oh, I thought that was going to be the best idea I ever had. Didn't work. Okay, so now let me figure it out over here.
That's right.
Yeah.
So just keep going.
Keep going and be resourceful.
And be resourceful.
Because when it comes down to it, you're the one who is going to make it happen. You think you may rely on an employee or something, but it's not their business. And at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I better learn how to do that because I have to.
Right. And what about finances? Because sometimes I think when people want to change their life, they feel like I have to keep doing this job because it's paying my mortgage or my bills are being paid. And that in order to shift, you're going to take a risk. So how did you manage your finances? How did you get this so that you got to a place where you weren't in a constant state of anxiety about money?
I'm going to jump in here.
Yes, jump in. Financial planner.
If you have, I think, a job that's paying your bills, while you have that job, start networking, go to events that are more along the lines and look at them as, as opposed to I'm just going to a party, I'm going to networking. And start doing that while you still have your job. And I think that'll give you a lot of support. And transition, and you're gonna have to put in the hours anyway, but maybe on the weekends, part-time, and who has time for that? But you'll find time, and it'll make the transition a lot easier. Or, you might be able to find investors, people who believe in you, or you may have money just sort of sitting around, Louis Vuitton luggage that you don't really use anymore, and you can just get rid of it. And some of these, things like that you can find in your budget that could help you make the transition.
eBay.
Clean out your garage.
Lisa, what about you?
Well, it was a struggle because the money that we had raised to open the store, since we didn't open the store, I couldn't use it. And so I was just, I was lucky enough to have a credit line on my house and a husband who let me use it. So, and it was tough. There's a lot of anxiety there. I was already not working anymore. So for me, it wasn't about doing it on the weekends. This was all I was doing. So I had a house. My career enabled me to buy that house. And so I look at it that way, that I was lucky that I had that. But I couldn't pay myself for the first 3 years. I made sure to pay everyone else and all my bills for the business. And, and then slowly it just started coming around, and so I just looked at it like I took my asset and invested in myself, and
And it paid off.
Yeah, it's always an uphill battle, but yeah, the company is growing, and I employ almost 50 people, and that's a nice feeling, and so yeah.
I think I was fortunate. I used my own money and didn't raise any money. And so I didn't want to bring on investors or partners because I didn't want anybody else to tell me what to do. But, and I did borrow a small bit of money, as I mentioned, from Montecito Bank and Trust, because I bought the property in the building and funded everything, and I just wanted some money for equipment. But I was fortunate because of that, because of Sony and just investing smartly and when I was younger. But I think what I did want to say about the finances thing was when I left Sony, I was living large, really. I mean, you know, we had a house in Hancock Park on Norton Avenue, and don't you live on Norton? Yeah. I think so. You live in the corner house, right?
Am I in your house?
Yeah. No. We were in 201 North. Yeah, you were across the street from Kim.
Yes.
I'm just was further up. You could have smelled the bread coming down the street. But you know, we had an apartment in New York, and we had a house in the San Ynez Valley. So it was a really, really big nut every month. And luckily, I still got paid by Sony for a couple of years. But I sat with my investment guys right away and realized that we've got to figure out how to take my life and our lifestyle and make it affordable, because we don't know what the future. I didn't know I was going to open a bakery yet. I didn't know, and I thought I was going to get another job right away. And so right away at 50 years old, I said, let me figure out how to live within my means and our means. And we, cut 66% out of our, monthly needs so that we can live within our means. And I think that's a really valuable lesson to people that may be contemplating transition, because just because you've got the money coming in, learn how to live within your means when you have the opportunity to, as opposed to an unfortunate situation is when you are forced to.
Yeah, so you got to save your money and live below your means.
Right, even little things like not going out. If you went out to dinner a lot, don't go out a lot. That saves so much in this town, Right. So yes, you start to do certain things like that. When your car lease comes up, maybe you don't need the BMW again, so you get something else, But and then as you do those things, you start to realize I didn't need all these things. I think maybe in your 20s you feel like you want to do all those things in 30s.
When you're working in this business, it's all glamorous.
Yes, you want to keep up.
Your friends have this, or your coworkers have this, or whatever.
Right.
Tal, did you want to add to that? You said you had a similar.
I will say I was in the business, and I still have the same car I've had since I moved out here. So, yes. And it's still doing okay. I agree. Actually, I was really lucky as well. I sold a property actually to help pay for the second location. So I get it. It's like, and that was hard for me because that was something I saved up all my money where I was really proud to get in the first place, and it was terrifying to let it go. But again, I said the same thing. I'm investing in myself. And similar to what Bob's saying and changing, I've always been a believer of, look, if you can live whatever lifestyle you can live, great, enjoy it, but always know it's lucky. And always be okay mentally to know that's not your identity and not who you are. And just know that at any moment, if you had to downsize or change where you lived or change what you're doing or where you're going out, just be able to be okay with that in your heart. And I've always been like that. I'm like, oh my God, if I have to go work at Starbucks or go check people out at Target, I would be great at it and I would love it and I'd be able to talk to people. And I know I could probably work my way up to manager, and I've just always had that in my head. So it's really helped me make scarier leap choices, because the ramifications of losing a lot of stuff, I've been like, I'll be okay. So I think doing the physical work of tightening up is great, but I think doing also the emotional work of being okay with who you are, if it looks different, is huge.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very true. And I think the whole thing about getting attached to things, I mean, my lifestyle was very different when I was an actor. I've gone the other way. Now I'm like, buying. When I was an actor, I was like, don't spend the time. So anyway, it's a shift. It's a big shift for me.
How are you doing with that?
She looks great.
Okay, so is there something that you learned about yourself that you know now that you didn't know about yourself in your first career? Charlotte?
In my first career, I became accustomed to people listening to me and looking for the answers always, and being able to think on my feet and give them the answer immediately. What I've learned that I'm really good at, which I didn't know, is listening and enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy it.
listening. That's very, very good.
I'm really grateful for that epiphany.
Lisa?
I would say that learning to, I think I brought up before being resourceful, and when I was producing and you have a team of people and there's always somebody doing something for you, you rely on that.
Yeah.
And again, learning that, you know what, you can do things yourself. You can do it. If the ugly stuff, the good stuff, you know, I mean, you become an expert dishwasher, in my case, delivery person, whatever it is, you know, taking out the trash, cleaning the messes, because no one else is going to do it. And just learning that I had that within myself, and it was okay to do it, was, I would say that would be it. Yeah.
Great, that's great. Bob, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, I guess I would agree. I would definitely agree with Lisa. It's about being resourceful and learning that, you know, as a human, you get so tied to what you did or what you thought you were, but you know, you learn that you can do anything. You can really do anything if you set your mind to it, and you can just do it. And I never would have thought this is where my life was going to take me if you said to me 10 years ago. But I couldn't be happier with my life now. And you know, Tal and I were talking about this earlier. I wouldn't change a thing right now, and I'm so happy that the journey took me here. I was open to the journey. When I left Sony, one of the first calls I'd gotten was from Norman Lear, who I was still working with because we were distributing his library at Sony. But I'd worked for him my first job out of college, and you know, doing marketing and advertising for Tandem, and you know, for all the classic Norman Lear shows. And he called me and said, you know, how long have you been doing this? And I said, 30 years. And how long have you been at Sony? 11 years. And his response was, over and next. You know, find something you're passionate about and do it. So it was really great advice, but I wasn't ready to understand what it meant. And not until I found what I was passionate about did it really come into play and really understood it.
So you answered that was going to be my next question. But so find something you're passionate about, and you learned that you can succeed over here, you can succeed here. You're not defined by.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the Frank Sinatra song, love is lovelier the second time around. Find something you love, and you'll be just as happy, if not more happy.
Yeah. That's a recurring theme today that everyone keeps talking about. Find your joy, find your passion, and just go in that direction. I think sometimes people get stuck when they're like, well, I don't know what my passion is. I think some people, I always felt lucky because I thought I have a lot of passion for lots of different things. But what about you?
I mean,
what did you learn
for me,
about
it's a little
yourself?
bit probably not what would make sense, but because I was always a hustler, so I was always the person who would do a million jobs, so that part didn't surprise me, being resourceful. For me, it was balance. Honestly, like especially after coming from crazy intense jobs in the industry where, you know, running departments and having huge volume into then starting a business where you're doing, like all these people are saying, everything yourself, from sitting at the front desk, checking people in, setting it up, doing the programming, doing the finance. I mean, you're doing it all. I had a baby at the same time, so it was like having twins. I mean, it was insane. And I think weirdly in all this, I actually learned more how to take care of myself. So that's probably the biggest learning thing that's been different for me than ever was in any part of my career, is learning that how to take care of myself within all of it and how to like figure out what the balance is.
That's excellent. Yeah. So we're going to take questions, but before we do, let's just go do quick advice. Like if someone says, I need to change my career, what advice would you give them?
Do it.
Do it, okay.
I mean, agreed.
Yeah,
Just do something that you naturally feel passionate about, because then it will naturally come to you. Don't force something, but find something that's organic to you.
I've said that already, but I just, I think I've said it, so.
You said
Yeah.
find your passion.
Yeah.
Tal?
Trust. Just trust. If you really believe it and you feel it in your soul, just put one foot in front of the other and trust.
Yeah, that's great. And I would say ask everybody you know. Tell everybody you know you want to change your life and ask them to help you. Ask every single
Absolutely.
person. What, you know, there's no shame in asking for help, and just do that.
And it's okay to fail along the way too. Like
you
don't
will-
feel
you
that
will
every
fail.
step has to be perfect and that you did it right, because you won't do it right. There's going to be things that you do wrong. It's okay. It's really okay. You will get past it and you'll learn from it.
And like anything else, there's life coaches. And I find that some of them could be really helpful. Mine was
great.
Caroline McBooty, and she was really helpful.
Hire a life coach. Okay, let's take questions. Do we have questions?
I was wondering for you folks that worked in entertainment, when you run into your friends at conferences like this or at dinner, how often are they saying to you, God, you got out and you are happy?
All the time.
I wish I was happier, you know. I was in entertainment, and when I left to go work at a nonprofit, someone said to me, but now if you get married, when your wedding is listed in the Hollywood Reporter, it's going to say you're a non-pro. And I said, so will I be unhappy just to stay in this business and be non-pro? And then I married someone in television, so I got into it.
All right.
But I mean, do you feel so relieved when you look back now, and so proud, and are they jealous?
I mean, for me, I don't know that I feel relieved. I mean, I loved what I did in entertainment. So it's not really a relief, but I do feel very proud. And the people I meet, they all just think, like, thank God, like you said, like, oh, you're so lucky you got out. I was surprised to see so many people who are miserable at what they're doing.
It's still miserable.
Yeah.
You're still miserable.
Yeah.
I have a question. How did you involve social media and or the internet, and what kind of budgeting are you looking at percentage-wise?
It's
Be successful.
well, look, it's a big deal, and all of our businesses are slightly different. You know, influencers are a big deal now too. They don't always translate to dollars. I mean, in the door, and they don't always. For me, they don't always turn into seats in the door of people actually meditating. And also, my business is all predicated on authenticity. It's all about figure out who you are. So I have a tough balance with that. So how I use influencers in that way is usually only if they already come and want to do it themselves. I don't go after anyone. As far as social media, it's important. Again, with it's different with what we do. It's important. We have a really pretty good presence. We've been lucky as far as budget. It was never number one on my thing at all. It's really hard. Businesses are tough. So we've been really lucky. I have a lot of people who actually volunteer time a lot, or they do it for very little money. I was doing it myself in the beginning, and again, back to the balance thing that I learned, it takes up a lot of time.
It does. You're sweating. Oh, what picture should I
It's
post
just a lot
today?
of
What
time, and the
witty
stories
thing should
now.
I say? 3 hours later, I'm still fiddling with it.
Having-
So I hired somebody
Having spent
also.
my career
Yeah,
in
that's right, you're
marketing, I do my own marketing, obviously. But, you know, after years of marketing, you know, Jerry Seinfeld and The Young and the Restless and all these other shows and actors and things like that, I'm marketing myself. And like Tal said, for the first few years, I did everything. I was doing the ads and doing the publicity and doing all my social media and just everything. And then after a couple years, I said, you know what, I'm going to hire the best restaurant PR firm I can and let them work with me and create this. Because we had gotten great press and we had a great presence. But now I really now I'm managing a team of people that do it for us. So we always have social media, you know, daily. And I see it because
It's a
people
full-time
come
job.
in because they see a sandwich or a pastry on my
Yes.
Instagram feed.
Yes.
It's unfortunately, it's the world we live in, so you can't ignore
Right.
it, but it is a full-time job.
My company would like for me to not be on social media because I vent about politics on social media.
Oh, well, you have to have a
and
different
I'm
profile.
screaming on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yes.
could you just not, have so many things against, our president? And I'm like, oh, well, okay.
But
So
you
they
could
don't
do
want
your
me on
personal-
social media.
You can have your personal
You have your
social
personal.
media and then have your brand.
Exactly.
Right,
I have
it
mine
is an
separate,
important
too.
point to
Yeah,
make.
separate.
I mean, at
Separate.
least for me, I have colleagues that say political things on their company accounts, and that's their prerogative. But when you're dealing with the public, you don't know which way they lean,
Exactly.
and everyone is your customer. So it's important to, I think, to stay neutral with your social
Right,
media,
right. And what other questions do we
company
have?
social media.
Serve people in MAGA hats.
More questions? Any more questions? Yes.
I was wondering, do you feel this was a calling, a spiritual calling for you to make that change? Or was it just on the human level that you lost your job and you had to do what you had to do? And which, by the way, your bread is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I ate two pieces before I ate the chicken. Because it was so good.
I think it was a
Question.
confluence of those elements because I had never baked a loaf of bread in my life before. So it really just was something that I discovered that it became a spiritual calling.
But I would argue that in times like that, it was there. It was always meant for him to go do that. And when you're not following your path and when you're not listening to your voices, you're going to get knocked on your ass until you have to.
I agree.
So it's like you said, a confluence.
Yeah.
Well, your stories are really enlightening and wonderful. I mean, it seems like you're all very successful in your reinventing of your life. You don't have to tell us what, but now that you've been successful in a second time, do you have a third idea that you're...
Yeah,
you kind of have...
I have to say that lately, a couple of things have come into my universe, and I'm like, well, why not pursue it? I mean, there's no reason why I can't do it while I have my bakery business, and so.
Great question.
Your spouse
It's
supports you.
percolating right now. I mean, I haven't until. It's percolating, and I'm working it out, and I'm just thinking like, well, yeah. Why does it just have to be that this is just my life now and that's it? It doesn't. Again, you don't have to look for it. It's just something that came into my universe, and so it naturally happened. So yeah, you should.
Yeah, I feel like I'll reinvent myself 3 more times. I don't know what it is, but I
Right.
definitely for sure
Right.
know it's not going to be, I'm just going to always be open. And so it's going to take me other places. And sometimes it might be successful and sometimes it might not. So.
Very good.
So I'm just wondering if there's me and my husband. My husband is not a risk taker. There's a business that I would like us to go in, and he is not. Did you all consider yourselves entrepreneurs, risk takers beforehand, or did you just sort of lose your job and fall into this, or am I making sense?
I don't think I was a risk taker, but necessity led me to be one.
Yeah.
But I would certainly, now that I've done it, I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner maybe.
Right.
I wasn't a risk taker. I was opinionated. I was very opinionated and I stuck by my convictions, but risk was definitely not something that I saw myself as a risk taker now.
I was a risk taker, but not necessarily an entrepreneur. Like I never thought I would create a business. I was never that. Some people are just like that. They always want to have ideas and want to create. That wasn't me, but I was always a risk taker.
I never thought of myself as a risk taker. I didn't think I wasn't. I just never thought about it. But when I look back on my life, like even just coming into the business, I was in film school, but I hated it, and I got an internship on a movie, so I dropped out of film school because they they gave me a job, and so my family was aghast at that, and I was like, that'll work out. I moved out to LA. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job. I was very young. And when I look back now, I don't know that I could do that again now.
You can do things
but,
when you're
but
young.
like I never thought about it then. But when I look back, I went, okay, I guess I had that trait. I just didn't think about it that way.
All right, so I have written down more than 3 takeaways. I have almost 20, but I'm going to read fast, just from today's conversation and when we spoke earlier when we were prepping for the panel. So these are just some steps towards reinventing yourself. Find your passion. Know who you are. Know yourself. Be self-aware and live in your truth. Do your research. Go to job fairs. Educate yourself. Start slowly. Tell yourself this is not forever. You're not closing doors. You're opening a new one. Figure out how you're going to transfer your skills. Make a plan. Make lists. Take everybody out for coffee. Volunteer. That's one thing we didn't touch on.
I think I
Lisa,
talked about
we
that.
talked about,
Yeah.
about
Yes.
trading, doing trade.
Yes,
You talked
to
about
get
volunteer
the
work.
business, to get people to know about us, we were donating our stuff to charity events and leaving our cards there, and it worked. It really worked. And so then word just started to spread again without having a store. So yes, donate, volunteer, whatever.
Do projects
network.
for free.
Yeah.
Explore your new career while you're still employed in your other, right? So one thing we didn't touch is when you leave a job, you always want to leave on your own terms. Even if you're being let go, you want to craft it so that it's going your way always, so that you're in charge.
Control the narrative.
Save your money, visualize yourself out the door and you're in your new profession, and don't define yourself by what you do. Bob said this in our phone conversation. You don't own your job, right? Nobody owns their job unless you own your own business.
But even then.
But even then, all right? So, and just do it.
Do it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Now that you've been inspired by our incredible group of panelists, I'm sure you know somebody else who could use this information. Share it, pay it forward, be our influencer. If you want to support projects like this, it's real easy. Go to MPTF.com, and also please follow us on social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Or if you're so inclined, we would be so grateful for your support. You can text MPTF to 41444 to make a donation.